Welcome to our first night of small groups for the month of September here in 2018. Can you believe that it's already September 2018? Absolutely crazy. Now, for September, we've got Family Day, September 22nd, which is 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's going to be for families to come together, have fun together. So it's not only for us to grow family-wise, but church family as well, to grow together. And it's going to be a lot of fun. You're not going to want to miss it. Lunch is included in that. The next thing that we have for you is worship night on September 30th at 6 p.m. This is a time for us to come together, to worship before the Lord, to praise the Lord, to pray before the Lord, all together. It's going to be an awesome night. You're not going to want to miss it. The next thing we have is John Christ, which is, he's a comedian. He's going to be performing down in Fresno, October 18th. As a church, we are putting together a trip where everybody can get their own tickets, and we're going to carpool down there. If you want to be a part of that, go ahead and give me a call or talk to one of the group leaders. They'll get you the information for that. It's going to be really, really, really funny. And I always die laughing. I was even just listening to something of his this morning where it was fantasy pastoring. So if you've ever heard of fantasy football, where you pick your favorite players on which ones are going to do the best, and then you compete against other people's picks, they were doing that with pastoring on which pastors are going to do better. Absolutely hilarious. Anyways, you're not going to want to miss him. He's really, 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 really crazy funny. So you're not going to want to miss that. The next thing is our Joseph Prince devotionals that we do here at Calvary First. This is something that's about 30 seconds long, 45 seconds at the very most. It's just a couple of paragraphs, but it's just a shot of something about grace and of God's love and of God's goodness. And so we're on week 36, and today, which is Wednesday, it would be day 248. So if you want to jump in, there should be some paper copies there at the house that you can get a hold of that are there for you if you want to use the paper copies, or you can just go to the digital version through the app, which is the Bible app that you can get on that and use. And then also we've been doing the Bible through a year. We've been using the Bible Project. Now you can go through the app right here if you want, or you can also, we have a paper copy as well, just as far as what chapters to read in the Bible, so that you can go through that yourself on your own with your own paper Bible. And so you can do that. And again, where it's week 36, day 248, and it's been good going through that. I believe we're at the end of Matthew right now. And so we're right there. So the next thing is, if you want to give, you can go to hillmarcalvary.church, and you can click on the Give Here button on the website. It's just right there, really easily, just hillmarcalvary.church. We'll bring up the website, just go boop, and it'll take you right to the website where you can give. If not, we also have these right here for you that you can have, where if you have a check or some cash, you can give right there as well. And just at the end of the meeting, you can just go ahead and give that to him, or grab an envelope now and you can give that to him at the end. So the next thing is that because we're in the month of wisdom, if you have any question, there will be just a little sheet of paper you can get from your house, there, your person, whatever that's called, your house leader, your small group leader. There we go. There we go. That's how you know this is done in one take. One take, right here, one take. Small group leader, you can ask your small group leader for that. And what I'm doing is, for this month, is I want you to write a question down. It can be about anything. Now, hopefully it's around wisdom and God, but you can ask any question. What I'm going to do is, over the next couple weeks, here in September, I'm going to begin just taking a question or two and answering them during the service, or answering them during the small groups that we're having here tonight. And you'll be able to get those questions answered. So I'm really excited about that. So the next thing that we want to do is just go right into the Bible Project, which is what we're doing for the year. We are through thebibleproject.com. They have these different videos. And so this one right here that we're about ready to watch is going to be about the book of Proverbs and about wisdom. Since we're going through that throughout the month, that's another challenge that we're doing, is just every single day. If it's today is I believe the 6th. And so the 5th or the 6th there. And if it's day 5, you read Proverbs 5. If it's day 6, you read day 6. If it's 25, you read Proverbs 25. So that's a challenge that we're doing. And so with that, and we're talking about wisdom this month, I just want you to watch this video real quick.
The book of Proverbs. The word proverb typically refers to a short, clever saying that offers some kind of wisdom, and this book has a lot of those. But they're almost all in the center section of the book, chapters 10 to 29. But there is way more going on in the book of Proverbs, especially at the beginning, chapters 1 through 9, and the conclusion, chapters 30 and 31. The book's been designed with an introduction, chapter 1, verses 1 through 9, and it first of all links this book to King Solomon. Now remember the story in 1 Kings chapter 3. Solomon had asked God for wisdom to lead Israel well. And so Solomon became known as the wisest man in the ancient world. And we're told in 1 Kings chapter 4 that he wrote thousands of proverbs and poems and collected knowledge about plants and animals. So Solomon was like the fountainhead of Israel's wisdom literature. So while not all the material in this book is written by him personally, he is where Israel's wisdom tradition began. The introduction says that by reading this book, you too can gain wisdom. Now, wisdom for most of us means knowledge, but the Hebrew word chokhmah means much more than just mental activity. It refers to action also. So think skill or applied knowledge. This is why back in the book of Exodus, chapter 31, it was artists and craftsmen in Israel who were said to have chokhmah. So the purpose of this book is to help you develop a set of practical skills for living well in God's world. And this gets linked with another key idea in the introduction, the fear of the Lord. Now, fear here is not about terror. It's about a healthy sense of reverence and awe for God and about my place in the universe. It's a moral mindset that recognizes I am not God and that I don't get to make up my own definitions of good and evil and right and wrong. Rather, I need to humble myself before God and embrace God's definition of right and wrong, even when that's inconvenient for me. Now, this introduction leads us into the first main section of the book, chapters 1 through 9, which also doesn't contain short one-liner proverbs. Rather, what we find here are 10 speeches from a father to a son about how the son should listen to wisdom and cultivate the fear of the Lord and live accordingly, which means a life of virtue and integrity and generosity, all of which lead to success and peace. The father warns his son also about folly and evil and stupid decisions that will breed selfishness and pride, all leading to ruin and shame. And so the son should make the pursuit of wisdom and the fear of the Lord his highest goal in life. And this way of thinking, it forms the moral logic of this entire book. Now, these speeches from the father also clue us into what biblical wisdom literature is and how it's different from other parts of the Bible. These books explore how to live well in God's world, but wisdom is not the same as law, like what Moses gave Israel at Mount Sinai. And it's not the same as prophecy, divine speech to God's people. Rather, wisdom literature has the accumulated insight of God's people through the generations about how to live in a way that honors God and others. And so, through the book of Proverbs now, these human words about wisdom have been put together as God's word and wisdom to his people, which connects to the other thing you find in chapters 1 through 9. There are 4 poems from Lady Wisdom. Here, wisdom has been poetically personified as a woman who calls out to humanity to pay attention and to seek her. Wisdom says that she is woven into the fabric of the universe, and so wherever you see people making wise decisions, they are relying on her. So you see someone being generous or having sexual integrity or upholding justice. They are drawing on wisdom. These Lady Wisdom poems, they're a creative, poetic way of exploring this idea that we live in God's moral universe, and that goodness and justice are objective realities that we ignore to our own peril. And so fearing the Lord, living wisely, it's living along the grain of the universe. Now together, these two sets of speeches from the Father and Lady Wisdom, they make a powerful claim about this book, that you're not simply reading good advice, you're reading God's own invitation to learn wisdom from previous generations. And so in the next section of the book, chapters 10 through 29, we find hundreds of ancient proverbs, and they apply wisdom and the fear of the Lord to every life topic you could imagine: family, work, neighborhood, friendship, sex, marriage, money, anger, forgiveness, alcohol, debt, everything. And these are all filtered through the value system of Proverbs 1 through 9. Now, these Proverbs, they're all pretty short, they're easy to memorize, and actually this section of the book is meant to become a reference work that you return to time and time again throughout the years, which raises some important issues in learning how to read these Proverbs. First of all, Proverbs are by nature about probabilities. So you fear the Lord and you make wise, good choices, things will likely go well for you. And if you don't fear the Lord, you're foolish, your life will likely not go so well. Now, that is all often true, but not always. Which leads to the next point, that Proverbs are not promises. They're not formulas for success. So, some Proverbs, for example: the fear of the Lord prolongs your life, but the years of the wicked are cut short. Or, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't turn from it. So yes, fearing God, being a moral person, will most likely lead to a better, longer life, and raising your kids in a stable, loving home does set them up well, but there are no guarantees. Lots of things can and often do go wrong in our world. And so lastly, Proverbs by nature focus on the general rule, but not the exceptions, which are many. And the wisdom books actually aren't ignorant of that. The exceptions are what the other wisdom books, Job and Ecclesiastes, are all about. And together, these acknowledge that life is too complex for simple formulas, which is why we need all of the wisdom books together to get the bigger picture. This all leads to the final section of the book, two large collections of poems. First, poems from a man named Agur, who begins by acknowledging his own ignorance and folly and his great need for God's wisdom. And then Agur discovers that divine wisdom has been given to him in the scriptures, which teach him how to live well. And so Agur is put before us as like a model reader of the book of Proverbs, somebody who's always open to hearing God's wisdom through the scriptures. The final poems are connected to a man named Lemuel. He's a non-Israelite king, and he passes on the wisdom that was given to him by his mom. It's guidance for being a wise and just leader. And then the final poem is an acrostic or an alphabet poem where each line begins with a new letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And the entire poem's about the woman of noble character. It depicts a woman who lives according to the wisdom of Proverbs and stands like a model of someone who takes God's wisdom and then translates it into practical decisions in everyday life, at work or at home, in her family and in her community. So the book opened with words from a father to a son about listening to Lady Wisdom, and so now the book closes by offering the words of a mother to her son about a woman who lives wisely. The book of Proverbs is for every person in every season of life. It's a guide for living wisely and well in God's good world. And that's what the book of Proverbs is all about.
Okay, so now that you've seen that video, we're talking about wisdom this month, and just a couple of quick scriptures on wisdom. Job 12:13, it says this: "To God belong wisdom and power, counsel and understanding are his." So when we're talking about wisdom, the source for wisdom is God. He's the one that we go to. Proverbs 3:13 through 18 says this: "Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding, for she is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. See, her ways are ways that are pleasant, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. Those who hold her fast will be blessed." Now right here, just look at this. Long life is in her right hand. Riches and honor are in her left hand. When we're thinking about this, Long life is in her right hand. That means that as as wisdom gets in us, long life will then be something that begins to take place, and we will be able to see the length of days. And this right here is talking about length of days. How many days are you living? So instead of 80 years, you might have 95. And I've always been, for a long time, I've always been someone that's like, I want to live as long as possible, see as many kids or grandkids, great-grandkids, great-great-grandkids. I know someone who she was about 110 years old and was able to see 6 generations all the way down. Absolutely incredible. She had over 120 living descendants before she passed away. Just incredible. God had given her long life. Now, not only long life, but also riches and honor. See, as we are wise, as we become, as we understand how things begin to work in God's wisdom and serving Him and living in His goodness and His grace, riches and honor are there as well. And then it says her ways are pleasant ways and on there. Now the next one, the next part that I want us to just to look at and think about when we're talking about wisdom is I just want you to imagine a coin real quick. Just a coin. There's 2 sides to a coin. You've got one side. If you're in America, you've got one that's your heads, and then the other one is your tails. Even though there's never really any tails on there, there's 2 sides. There's 2 different things, and wisdom is kind of like that. I should say the beginning of wisdom is kind of like a coin. If I were to say, hey, if I'm a coin collector, this would be the coin that I start with. It's right here. Now, if I'm wisdom and I'm collecting, what do I start with? And it's this coin right here. And on the first side of it is the fear of the Lord. Psalms 111:10 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All who follow His precepts have good understanding. To Him belongs eternal praise. Proverbs 9:10 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So when we're looking at one side of this coin is the fear of the Lord. And that scripture, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It's kind of like this. If there is a path that is called wisdom, the very beginning steps are the fear of the Lord. So I'm going to learn about the fear of the Lord. I'm going to see what I can learn to be able to walk in the fear of the Lord. And the fear of the Lord is not being afraid. It is not being scared of God. It is a reverence and a worship of the Lord. And next week is actually all on the fear of the Lord, and we'll get into that. But this is the first side of the coin, is the fear of the Lord, beginning of wisdom. Now, Job 28:12-28 says this, but where can wisdom be found? Where does understanding dwell? No mortal comprehends its worth. It cannot be found in the land of the living. The deep says, it is not in me. The sea says, it is not with me. It cannot be bought with the finest gold, nor can its price be weighed out in silver. It cannot be bought with the gold of Ophir, with precious onyx or lapis lazuli, however you say that. Neither gold nor crystal can compare with it, nor can it be had for jewels of gold. Coral and jasper are not worthy of mention. The price of wisdom is beyond rubies. The topaz of Cush cannot compare with it. It cannot be bought with pure gold. I love this part. Where then does wisdom come from? Where does understanding dwell? It is hidden from the eyes of every living thing, concealed even from the birds in the sky. Destruction and death say, only a rumor of it has reached our ears. God understands the way to it, and He alone knows where it dwells, for He views the ends of the earth and sees everything under the heavens. When He established the force of the wind and measured out the waters, when He made a decree for the rain and a path for the thunderstorm, then He looked at wisdom and appraised it. He confirmed it and tested it. And He said this is crazy. He is saying to us right now, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. And to shun evil is understanding. I cannot wait to talk about the fear of the Lord next week with you. But this is one side of the coin, is the fear of the Lord. Now the second side is this. Very easy. Listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding. I give you sound learning, so do not forsake my teaching. For I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother. Then he taught me and he said to me, take hold of my words with all your heart, keep my commands, and you will live. Right here, get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn away from them. Do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. Right here, the beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. Cherish her, and she will exalt you. Embrace her, and she will honor you. She will give you a garland to grace your head and present you with a glorious crown. But this right here, the beginning of wisdom is this: get more wisdom. That's why on Sunday when I was preaching, I was saying, hey, think of one thing that you need wisdom on. And then I would talk for a little more, and then I said, hey, think of a second thing. And then I would talk for a little more. I said, hey, think of a third thing that we need wisdom on right now. And the challenge for this month is, instead of Pinterest or Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat or whatever social media or even little video game you might get caught up in, go seek out and get wisdom in these areas of our life. Go forget all of the other junk and say, God, I'm coming after you. God, I'm coming after the wisdom that you have, because it's found in you and in you alone. So with that, we are done. There's going to be some discussion questions here for you guys to talk about. And I just want to encourage you, seek more wisdom. And at the same time, if you want, you can go to, I believe it's called BibleGateway.com, and you can just put in the fear of the Lord in their little search tab, and it'll bring up almost every single verse there that has the fear of the Lord in it. And so go search out fear of the Lord, go get more wisdom, and remember the coin analogy, which is the beginning. There's two sides to the beginning of wisdom. Number one, get more, and then the flip side of that is the fear of the Lord. So love you guys. Have a great rest of your night. Be blessed.